The USS Horizon flew through space like a ghost ship. Jake Morrison could see stars through the windows, but they looked different now. The ghost drives made everything appear slightly blurred, as if he was looking through water. Danny Walsh said they were existing between dimensions which kept them safe from the erasers. "Captain, I am detecting a strong quantum echo from the Kepler 442 system," Danny reported from his station. "The signal is much stronger than what we found before. There might be many survivors there." Jake felt hope rise in his chest. "How many people are we talking about?" Danny worked with his instruments for several minutes. "The echo suggests thousands of humans, sir. They seem to be underground on the main planet." Lisa Rodriguez checked their fuel and supplies. "We can reach Kepler 442 in 2 days. The ghost drives are working perfectly, but they use a lot of power." The journey to Kepler 442 gave Jake time to think about their situation. 3 months ago, he commanded a simple research ship with 12 crew members. Now he was leading what might be the last free humans in the galaxy. The weight of that responsibility felt heavier than the ship itself. When they reached the Kepler 442 system, Danny found the source of the quantum echo immediately. The planet below them was a mining world where humans had dug deep tunnels to extract rare metals. The surface looked empty and lifeless, but the echoes came from far underground. "There are definitely humans down there," Danny said. "I count at least 3,000 people in the deep mining tunnels." Jake opened a communication channel and sent a message to the planet. He used old mining codes that Amy Carter had taught him. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then a woman's voice answered. "Unknown ship. This is Administrator Kate Wilson, of Mining Station Deep Rock. Identify yourself immediately or we will consider you hostile." Jake smiled. It was good to hear another human voice. "Administrator Wilson, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Horizon. We are human survivors searching for other people who escaped the erasers." There was a long pause. Then Kate's voice returned, but now it sounded excited and hopeful. "Captain Morrison, we thought we were the only ones left. Please land at coordinates I am sending you, but be careful. The erasers have patrols in this system." Jake looked at his crew. They all wanted to land immediately and meet the other survivors. But Jake was worried about traps. What if the erasers had captured these humans and were using them as bait? Danny checked his sensors carefully. "Captain, I am not detecting any eraser ships in the area. The quantum echoes are genuine. These are really human survivors." Jake made his decision. "Lisa, take us down to the landing coordinates. Keep the ghost drives active in case we need to escape quickly." The Horizon landed on a flat area near the entrance to the main mining tunnel. The surface of Kepler 442b was dry and rocky with no plants or animals. The air was thin but breathable. Within minutes, Jake saw people coming out of the tunnel entrance. Kate Wilson was a tall woman with strong arms and a face that showed she had worked hard all her life. Behind her came dozens of other humans. Men, women, and children emerged from underground. Many of them were crying with joy at seeing the Horizon. "Captain Morrison," Kate said as she shook Jake's hand. "Welcome to our little corner of hell. We have been hiding down here for 4 months ever since the erasers came." Jake introduced his crew to Kate and her people. The miners had survived by going deeper underground than the erasers had expected. The quantum scrubbers could not penetrate the dense rock and metal deposits that surrounded the deep tunnels. Kate led them into the tunnels. The underground complex was huge. The miners had built a complete city beneath the surface. There were living areas, workshops, farms that grew food under artificial lights, and even schools for the children. "We have 3,047 people here," Kate explained as they walked through the tunnels. "Most of them are miners and their families, but we also have doctors, teachers, engineers, and scientists. We have everything needed to survive indefinitely." Jake was amazed by what the survivors had built, but he was also worried. "Kate, we discovered that the erasers are working backward through time. Eventually they will find this place too." Kate nodded grimly. "We know. Our scientists have been studying the quantum scrubbers. We think we have found a way to block them, at least temporarily." She led Jake to a large chamber where dozens of people worked on strange machines. The devices looked similar to the Ghost, drives on the Horizon but much larger and more complex. We call them quantum anchors, Kate explained. They create pockets of stable reality that resist erasure. We have been installing them throughout the tunnel system. Danny examined the quantum anchors with great interest. This is brilliant work. But how did you develop this technology so quickly? A young man with black hair and tired eyes stepped forward. I am Dr. Ben Parker, formerly of the Galactic Research Institute. We had some of this equipment here for mining operations. When the erasers came, I figured out how to modify it for defense. Lisa studied the anchor systems. These could be very useful, Dr. Parker. Could you build smaller versions that we could install on ships? Ben nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. In fact, we have been hoping to contact other survivors and share this technology. The more places we can anchor, the harder it becomes for the erasers to complete their work. Over the next few days, Jake learned more about how the miners had survived. They had been lucky in several ways. First, their deep tunnels had natural protection from quantum scrubbers. Second, they had supplies and equipment to last for years. Third, they had people with the right skills to develop new defensive technologies. But Jake also learned disturbing news. Kate's people had been in contact with other survivor groups through hidden communication networks. Many of those groups had been found and erased by the erasers in recent weeks. There used to be survivor communities on 12 different worlds, Kate said sadly. Now we know of only 3 groups that are still active. Besides us, there is a group hiding on an orbital platform called Sanctuary, and another group on a space station near the Centauri system. Jake realized they needed to contact these other groups quickly. If they could work together, they might have a chance to fight back against the erasers. But if they remained separated, the erasers would find and erase them one by one. Danny had been studying the quantum echoes from his ship. Captain, I think I can modify our communication system to contact the other survivor groups without the erasers detecting us. It will take some work, but Dr. Parker's people can help. Jake made another important decision. Kate, we want to help you and your people, but we also need to unite all the survivor groups. Would you be willing to send some of your people with us to contact the others? Kate thought about this carefully. It is dangerous to leave our protected tunnels, but you are right. We are stronger together than apart. I will send Dr. Parker and a team of our best engineers with you. The next few days were busy as both groups prepared for their next mission. The miners installed quantum anchors on the horizon to make it even harder for the erasers to detect or erase. They also loaded the ship with supplies and equipment to share with other survivor groups. Jake was impressed by how well the miners and his crew worked together. Despite coming from very different backgrounds, they all understood they were fighting for the survival of the human race. On their last night at the mining colony, Kate held a meeting in the main cavern. 3,000 people gathered to hear Jake speak about their plans to unite the human survivors. We will not let the human race die quietly, Jake told them. We will find every survivor, share our knowledge and our strength, and fight back against those who would erase us. The erasers think they can make us disappear as if we never existed. They are wrong. The crowd cheered. Jake saw hope and determination in their faces. These people had already survived 4 months of hell. They were ready to fight for their future. The next morning, the USS Horizon left Kepler 442b with 12 new passengers. Jake looked back at the mining tunnels and hoped he would see Kate and her people again. But first he had to find the other survivor groups and build an alliance that could challenge the erasers. As they flew toward their next destination, Jake realized that humanity was far from finished. The erasers had made a big mistake. They had tried to destroy the human race, but instead they had made humans angry and desperate. Now the real fight would begin. The USS Horizon approached the orbital platform called Sanctuary, with 24 people now aboard. Jake Morrison felt both excited and nervous about meeting more survivors. Dr. Ben Parker had been working with Danny Walsh to improve their quantum detection systems during the 3-day journey. Captain, Sanctuary is responding to our signals, Lisa Rodriguez reported from the communication station. Commander Greg Thompson is requesting permission to dock. Jake smiled. Permission granted. Tell Commander Thompson that we have friends from the Kepler mining colony and important news to share. Sanctuary was much smaller than the mining colony, but much more advanced. The platform floated in space between two gas giant planets, hidden by their magnetic fields. As the horizon docked, Jake could see that the station had been modified with strange new equipment. Commander Greg Thompson was a short man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had served in the human military for many years before the erasers came. Behind him stood Dr. Susan Hayes, a xenobiologist who had been studying alien life forms when the Great Erasure began. "Captain Morrison, welcome to Sanctuary," Greg said as they shook hands. "We have 218 survivors here, including 43 children. We have been hoping to contact other groups for months." Dr. Hayes led them through the station. "We have made several important discoveries about the erasers since we went into hiding. Some of what we learned will shock you." The Sanctuary survivors had converted their space platform into a research center. Every room contained equipment for studying the erasers and their technology. Jake was amazed by the amount of work they had accomplished with so few people. "The most important thing we discovered is that the erasers are not truly alive," Dr. Hayes explained as they entered her laboratory. "They are quantum ghosts, the remains of a race that was erased millions of years ago." Danny leaned forward with interest. "How did you figure that out?" Dr. Hayes activated a display showing recordings of eraser ships. "We captured one of their communication signals and decoded it. The erasers are trapped in a state between existence and non-existence. They cannot fully live, but they cannot fully die either." Jake studied the alien recordings. "So they erase other races to escape their condition?" "Exactly," Dr. Hayes continued. "Each time they successfully erase a younger civilization, they become slightly more real. Their plan is to erase every race that evolved after they did, which would allow them to reclaim their place in normal reality." Dr. Ben Parker shared what his people had learned at the mining colony. "We developed quantum anchors to resist erasure, but your research suggests we need a completely different approach." Dr. Hayes nodded. "The anchors are good for defense, but they cannot win this war. We need to attack the problem at its source. The erasers have a critical weakness that we can exploit." She led them to another room where 3 survivors worked, with strange meditation equipment. The people sat very still with their eyes closed while machines monitored their brain activity. "We call it temporal consciousness," Dr. Hayes explained. "Most beings experience time in a straight line from past to future, but some individuals can develop awareness across multiple timelines simultaneously." Jake did not understand. "What does that mean in practical terms?" "It means they can remember things that were erased," Dr. Hayes said. "If someone develops temporal consciousness before being erased, parts of their memory and identity survive in other timelines. The erasers cannot completely delete them." Lisa looked skeptical. "How do we know this actually works?" Dr. Hayes smiled sadly. "Because we tested it. 3 months ago, the erasers found and erased our sister station, but one person there had developed temporal consciousness. We can still communicate with her across the dimensional barriers." This news excited everyone. If humans could develop immunity to erasure, they might have a real chance to fight back. But Jake was worried about the time required to train people in this technique. "Dr. Hayes, how long does it take to develop temporal consciousness?" "For most people, several months of intensive training, but we have found ways to speed up the process using a combination of meditation, drugs, and quantum field exposure." "Commander." Greg Thompson had been listening quietly. "Captain Morrison, Dr. Hayes has been working on something even more ambitious. Tell him about Project Genesis." Dr. Hayes looked nervous but determined. "We believe we can use the eraser's own technology against them. If we can modify their quantum scrubbers, we might be able to reverse the erasure process." Jake felt his heart race. "You mean bring back the people and places that were erased?" "In theory, yes. But it would require getting close to the eraser, home base, and accessing their primary control systems. It would be the most dangerous mission imaginable." Over the next few days, Jake learned more about the Sanctuary survivors and their research. They had been in contact with the 3rd survivor group near Centauri through quantum encrypted messages. That group was led by Commander Alex Morgan and included 50 military personnel and their families. The three survivor communities began working together to develop their defensive and offensive capabilities. The miners provided quantum anchors and raw materials. Sanctuary contributed research and temporal consciousness training. The military group would provide tactical expertise and combat experience. But then terrible news arrived. Commander Alex Morgan sent an emergency message saying that eraser fleets had found several hidden survivor groups. The aliens were accelerating their timeline, moving faster toward Earth and the remaining human strongholds. "We are running out of time," Jake told his assembled officers. "The erasers know we survived and are organizing resistance. They want to finish their work before we can stop them." Dr. Hayes had been working day and night on her temporal consciousness research. "Captain, I think we can speed up the training, process even more. If we combine the techniques from all three communities, we might be able to give temporal awareness to hundreds of people within weeks instead of months." Jake made a difficult decision. "We need to bring all the survivor communities together in one place. It is dangerous, but we will be stronger if we can coordinate our efforts directly." Commander Greg Thompson agreed. "Sanctuary has the best research facilities, but the mining colony has the most people and the best defenses. Where should we meet?" Jake thought about their options. Each location had advantages and risks, but one possibility offered something unique that might tip the balance in their favor. "There is a fourth option," Jake said. "Dr. Amy Carter and her team are still trapped in the time loop at Station Aurora. If we could break them out and use their temporal technology, we might have everything we need to launch Project Genesis." The idea was ambitious and dangerous. Moving hundreds of survivors across space while avoiding eraser patrols would be extremely difficult. But if they succeeded, they would have the largest human force since the Great Erasure began. Dr. Ben Parker had been studying the quantum echo patterns from his ship. "Captain, I am detecting something new. The echoes are getting stronger, not weaker. I think more humans are developing temporal consciousness naturally as the erasure process continues." This gave Jake an idea. What if we sent out a message to every human who might still be alive? We could teach them the basics of temporal consciousness through quantum encrypted broadcasts. Dr. Hayes was excited by this possibility. If even a few hundred more people developed temporal awareness before being erased, their memories would survive to help us fight back. The survivors worked together to create the most important message in human history. It contained instructions for developing temporal consciousness, coordinates for safe meeting places, and hope that the human race could still be saved. As Jake prepared to broadcast the message across the galaxy, he thought about how much had changed since his ship emerged from that nebula months ago. 12 scared people had become leaders of a resistance movement that might save humanity from extinction. The broadcast went out on every frequency the survivors could access. Jake did not know how many people would receive it or whether it would reach them in time. But he knew that humans across the galaxy would fight for their survival, just as his crew had fought. The erasers had made a critical mistake. They thought erasing human colonies and cities would destroy the human spirit. Instead, they had created something much more dangerous, a united human race with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The memory war had begun, and Jake Morrison intended to win it. Jake Morrison looked at the strange readings on his screen. The USS Horizon had been searching for other human survivors for 2 weeks. Danny Walsh had found what he called quantum echoes in space. These echoes were like footprints that showed where humans had been before they disappeared. "Captain, I think I found something," Danny said from his science station. His voice was excited but also nervous. "There is a very weak signal coming from the Vega system. It does not look like normal human communication, but it has patterns that remind me of our technology." Lisa Rodriguez checked the ship systems. "We can reach Vega in 3 days if we push the engines a little harder." Jake nodded. "Do it. We need to find out what is making that signal." The journey to Vega felt very long. Jake could not sleep well. He kept thinking about all the empty human worlds they had found. 50 billion people had lived in human space just a few months ago. Now only 12 people remained on the horizon. When they reached the Vega system, Danny found the source of the signal. It came from a research station that floated in empty space between two planets. The station looked normal from the outside, but something was wrong with the way light reflected off its hull. The station exists, but it also does not exist, Danny said. He sounded confused. My instruments show it is there, but also show empty space at the same time. Lisa frowned. That makes no sense. Something cannot be there and not there. Unless it is trapped between two states of reality, said a new voice. Jake turned to see who had spoken. The communication screen showed a woman with short gray hair and tired eyes. She wore a human research uniform. This is Dr. Amy Carter of Research Station Aurora. Please identify yourselves. Jake felt his heart jump. Another human was alive. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Horizon. Dr. Carter, we thought all humans had been erased from the galaxy. Amy smiled, but it was a sad smile. We were erased, Captain. My team and I only exist because we were running a time experiment when it happened. We are trapped in a time loop that repeats every 72 hours. The loop protects us from whatever destroyed the other humans. Jake wanted to dock with the station immediately. Amy guided the Horizon to a special docking port that could connect with the time loop. As soon as Jake stepped onto the station, he felt strange. The air seemed to vibrate in a way that made his skin tingle. Amy led Jake and his officers to the station command center. 23 other humans worked at various stations. They all looked tired and worried, but they were alive. Jake wanted to hug each of them. Dr. Carter, what exactly happened to the human race? Jake asked. Amy activated a large display screen. It showed a map of human space with red marks covering every human world and station. We call them the Erasers. They are an ancient alien race that views humans as a disease that must be removed from the galaxy. But they do not just kill us, they erase us from reality itself. Danny leaned forward. What do you mean erase from reality? They use quantum scrubbers, Amy explained. These devices do not just destroy matter. They remove the possibility that something ever existed. When they finish their work on a planet, it is as if humans never lived there. Even the aliens who knew us forget we existed. Lisa asked the question that Jake was afraid to hear answered. How long do we have before they erase everything? Amy looked very sad. The erasers are working backward through time. They started by erasing our newest colonies. Now they are moving toward older settlements and finally toward Earth itself. Based on our calculations, they will reach Earth in about 6 months. Jake felt sick. Earth was home to 15 billion humans. It was where the human race had begun. If the erasers reached Earth, humanity would be completely gone from the universe. There has to be a way to stop them, Jake said. Amy nodded. We have been working on that problem for months. The time loop gives us advantages. We can repeat experiments until we get them right. We have learned a lot about eraser technology. She showed them recordings of eraser ships. The aliens looked like living shadows that could change shape. Their ships were black and seemed to absorb light. The quantum scrubbers appeared as large rings that glowed with purple energy. The scrubbers work by changing the quantum state of matter, Amy explained. They convince the universe that certain things never happened, but they have weaknesses. Time itself can resist them if we use it correctly. Danny studied the data with great interest. Could we use your time loop technology to protect other places? Amy shook her head. The time loop takes enormous amounts of energy. We can only protect small areas like this station, but we might be able to create something better. She led them to another room where her team was building strange devices. The machines looked like a mix of human technology and something else that Jake had never seen before. We call them ghost drives, Amy said. They push a ship slightly out of normal space-time. The ship becomes very hard to detect and even harder to erase. We think we can modify your ship with this technology. Lisa examined the ghost drive plans. This is incredible work, Dr. Carter, but why are the erasers doing this? Why do they hate humans so much? Amy looked even more tired. We discovered the truth about the erasers 3 weeks ago. They are not really alive anymore. Long ago, another ancient race erased them the same way they are erasing us. But the erasure was not complete. Parts of them survived as quantum ghosts. Jake began to understand. So they are trying to complete the erasure by removing newer races? Exactly. If they can erase enough younger civilizations, they believe they can return to full existence. Humans are just one step in their plan. After us, they will go after other races that evolved after they did. The next few days were very busy. Amy's team worked with Lisa to install ghost drives on the horizon. The process was dangerous and difficult. They had to change the ship engines and add new equipment that barely fit in the cargo bays. Danny helped Amy study the quantum echoes they had found. Together, they discovered that the echoes formed patterns across space. Some patterns were stronger than others. The strongest echoes might lead to more human survivors. There could be thousands of humans still alive, Amy said. They might be hiding in places the erasers have not found yet. We need to reach them before it is too late. Jake agreed, but first they needed to test the ghost drives. Amy warned him that the technology was still experimental. Using it might tear the ship apart or trap them between dimensions forever. Jake looked at his crew. They all knew the risks, but they also knew they had no choice. The human race was depending on them. If they failed, 15 billion people on Earth would be erased from reality as if they had never existed. The USS Horizon prepared to leave Station Aurora. Amy gave them coordinates for the strongest quantum echoes. With luck, they would find more survivors and learn how to fight back against the erasers. As they flew away from the station, Jake watched it fade from view. Amy and her team would continue their work in the time loop, searching for better weapons against their enemies. Jake hoped he would see them again, but he was not sure that would be possible. The ghost drives activated with a strange humming sound. Jake felt reality shift around him as the ship moved into a space between spaces. They were no longer completely real, but they were not completely gone either. Now the real work would begin. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon and watched the stars through the main window. The ship moved slowly through the dark nebula they had been studying for 3 months. The purple and blue gases swirled around them like cosmic smoke. Jake felt good about their mission. They had found new elements in this nebula that could help humans build better ships and faster engines. Lisa Rodriguez worked at her station near the back of the bridge. She was the chief engineer, and the best one Jake had ever worked with. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel as she checked the ship systems. Everything looked normal. The engines ran smooth and quiet. The life support worked perfectly. The shields protected them from the nebula gases. Danny Walsh sat at the science station on the left side of the bridge. He was young, but very smart. For weeks he had been collecting data about the strange particles in the nebula. His screen showed numbers and charts that most people could not understand. But Danny loved this kind of work. He said the nebula held secrets that could change how humans traveled between stars. The communication station made a soft beeping sound. Jake walked over to check it. The screen showed no messages from Earth or any human colonies. This was normal, when they worked deep in space. Radio signals could not travel through the thick nebula gases. Jake was not worried. In a few days they would move out of the nebula and contact the nearest human base. Lisa looked up from her work. "Captain, all systems are running perfect. We can stay in the nebula for another week if Danny needs more time for his research." Jake nodded. "Good work, Lisa. Danny, how much more time do you need?" Danny turned in his chair. "Just a few more days, Captain. I think I found something really important. These particles might let us build engines that are 10 times faster than what we have now." The other crew members worked quietly at their stations. There were 12 people total on the Horizon. Each person had an important job. Some worked in engineering, others handled navigation or weapons. A few took care of the food and air systems. They all trusted each other with their lives. Jake had commanded ships for 15 years. He had seen many strange things in space, but he had never found a nebula like this one. The gases moved in patterns that seemed almost alive. Sometimes the colors changed in ways that reminded him of music. Danny said it was just natural physics, but Jake was not so sure. 3 days later, the Horizon moved out of the nebula. Jake expected to receive dozens of messages from Earth and the colonies. Ship captains always got reports about new missions, supply needs, and news from home. But when they cleared the nebula, the communication system stayed silent. Lisa tried to contact the nearest human base. She sent the standard greeting message and waited for a reply. Nothing came back. She tried again with more power. Still nothing. She looked worried and tried to reach other bases. Every attempt failed. Danny checked his instruments. "Captain, I can see the base on long-range sensors. It looks like the buildings are still there. But I'm not getting any life signs or energy readings." Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. "What do you mean, no life signs?" "The base looks empty, sir. No lights, no power, no people moving around. It is like everyone just left." Lisa tried to contact other human colonies. She sent signals to mining stations, research posts, and military bases. Hours passed with no replies. The silence felt heavy and frightening. Something was very wrong. Jake ordered the ship to move toward the closest human colony. It was a farming world called New Kansas, where 50,000 people lived. The trip took 2 days. When they arrived, Jake could not believe what he saw on the main screen. The planet looked normal from space. The oceans were still blue. The continents were still green and brown. But when Danny scanned for human cities, he found nothing. Dunny. Farms were gone. The towns had disappeared. Even the roads could not be found. "This is impossible," Lisa said. 50,000 people cannot just vanish. Jake sent a small shuttle down to the planet's surface. The pilot reported that he could see plants and animals, but no signs that humans had ever lived there. No buildings, no machines, no graves. It was as if humans had never come to this world. They tried 3 more human colonies. Each one was the same. The planets were fine, but all traces of human life had been erased. Jake began to understand that something terrible had happened to the human race while they were in the nebula. Danny worked day and night to find answers. He discovered strange energy patterns around each empty world. The patterns looked like the marks left by some kind of advanced technology. Someone or something had been to these places and removed every sign of human presence. Lisa found something even more frightening. When she tried to access historical records from alien databases, she could not find any mention of humans. It was as if the entire galaxy had forgotten that humans existed. Even the aliens who had traded with humans for decades had no records of ever meeting them. Jake gathered his crew in the main meeting room. 12 faces looked at him with fear and confusion. He told them what they had learned. The human race had been erased from the galaxy. Every colony, every ship, every trace of human civilization had been destroyed or hidden. "But we are still here," said Lisa. "Why were we not erased too?" Danny had been thinking about this question. The nebula protected us. Its gases block many types of energy and signals. Whatever erased the other humans could not reach us while we were inside. Jake looked at his crew. They were probably the last humans in the galaxy. The thought made him feel sick and angry. But he was not ready to give up. Somewhere in space, other humans might have survived. His job was to find them and learn who had done this terrible thing. The USS Horizon turned toward the next system. Jake would not let the human race die without a fight. 6 months after the broadcast, Admiral Lisa Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon and watched the largest human fleet in centuries prepare for battle. Jake Morrison had given his life 3 weeks ago to destroy an eraser command ship, but his consciousness lived on in the quantum memory networks they had built throughout their hidden bases. The fleet consisted of 47 ships, carrying over 8,000 human survivors. They had ghost drives, quantum anchors, temporal consciousness training, and most importantly, they had hope. Dr. Amy Carter had finally escaped the time loop at Station Aurora and brought her temporal research to the Resistance. "Admiral, all ships are reporting ready for Operation Genesis," Commander Greg Thompson announced from the tactical station. He now served as Lisa's second-in-command after leaving Sanctuary to join the main fleet. Dr. Susan Hayes worked at the science station, where Danny Walsh used to sit before he joined the advance team. The quantum scrubber locations are confirmed. We have identified the primary eraser control facility in their home dimension. Lisa looked at the tactical display showing eraser positions throughout the galaxy. The aliens had accelerated their timeline after discovering the human resistance. Earth now sat under a massive temporal quarantine field, frozen in time while the erasers prepared for the final erasure. Dr. Carter, are your teams ready to begin the consciousness transfer? Lisa asked. Amy nodded from her position near the specialized equipment they had built over the past months. We have successfully connected with Jake's quantum echo and the memories of over 3,000 erased humans. When we activate the memory anchors during battle, they will fight alongside us across multiple timelines. The plan was incredibly complex and dangerous. The surviving humans would attack the eraser fleets on multiple fronts, while Dr. Carter led a team into the eraser home dimension. There, they would attempt to reverse the quantum scrubbers and restore not just humanity, but all the races the Biovibe. Erasers had erased throughout galactic history. Lisa gave the order to begin. All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. Today we fight not just for human survival, but for the right of every species to exist among the stars. Launch Operation Genesis. The human fleet moved through space like ghosts, phasing in and out of normal reality as their enhanced ghost drives carried them toward battle. The erasers had superior numbers and technology, but the humans had something their enemies had lost long ago: the ability to exist fully in the present moment. The first battle began at the Proxima Centauri system, where Commander Alex Morgan led a strike force against an eraser quantum scrubber installation. His ships appeared from ghost phase and unleashed every weapon they had. The scrubber facility exploded in a burst of purple energy that could be seen across the system. Similar attacks happened throughout human space as the resistance revealed itself fully for the first time. Mining ships became bombers. Research vessels turned into fighters. Even civilian transports joined the battle, ramming eraser ships that got too close to human refugees. But the real battle was happening in dimensions that normal eyes could not see. Dr. Amy Carter had taken a small team through a dimensional portal to the eraser homeworld. What they found there changed everything they thought they knew about their enemies. The eraser homeworld was not destroyed. It was frozen at the exact moment of its erasure millions of years ago. Billions of eraser citizens existed in a state between life and death, unaware that time had stopped around them. They were not evil conquerors, but victims of an even older race that had used the same erasure technology. My God, Dr. Carter whispered as she saw the truth. They are not trying to escape erasure. They are trying to complete it. They think, if they erase enough younger races, the universe will reset and give them a second chance to exist. Dr. Ben Parker worked frantically at the eraser control systems. Dr. Carter, I think I can reverse the quantum scrubbers, but it will require enormous amounts of energy. We need to channel the power from every battle happening across the galaxy. Amy made a decision that would change galactic history. Instead of using the reversed scrubbers as a weapon against the erasers, she chose to use them as a tool for healing. If she could restore the eraser homeworld to normal time, the ancient aliens might remember what they had lost and choose to help rather than harm. The energy buildup began as human ships throughout the galaxy fed power into the quantum network. Lisa watched from the horizon as space itself seemed to twist and bend around them. Reality became fluid as the boundaries between timelines began to dissolve. Then Jake Morrison appeared on the bridge, his form translucent but clearly visible. Hello, Lisa. I see you are doing well as Admiral. Lisa felt tears in her eyes. Jake, you should not be here. Using that much quantum energy to manifest could destroy your consciousness permanently. Jake smiled the same way he had when they were exploring that nebula so long ago. Some things are worth the risk. Besides, I am not alone. The bridge filled with the quantum echoes of erased humans. Danny Walsh stood at his old science station. Commander Alex Morgan appeared near the tactical display. Thousands of other humans who had been erased from reality stood ready to fight one final battle for their species. In the eraser home dimension, Dr. Carter activated the reversed quantum scrubbers. The energy wave spread across the galaxy at faster than light speed, touching every world and system where erasure had occurred, but instead of destroying it, restored. The effect was beautiful and terrifying. On world after world, erased cities flickered back into existence. Space stations that had been deleted from reality appeared in their original orbits. Even the people who had been erased began to return, their consciousness pulled back from the quantum void by the memory anchors. But the most dramatic change happened on the eraser homeworld itself. Time began moving again for the first time in millions of years. The frozen erasers awakened to find their world restored and their ancient civilization intact. The eraser fleets throughout the galaxy stopped fighting as their commanders tried to understand what was happening. For the first time since their erasure, they could remember who they had been before becoming quantum ghosts. They remembered having families, dreams, and hopes for the future. Lisa watched as eraser ships began landing on their restored homeworld. The ancient aliens were finally free to live again instead of existing as parasites feeding on younger civilizations. Dr. Carter's voice came through the communication system from the eraser dimension. Admiral Rodriguez, the quantum restoration is spreading beyond just human space. We are detecting restored civilizations throughout the galaxy. Species that were erased thousands of years ago are coming back to life. The galaxy was transforming as dozens of extinct races returned from quantum death. The restored civilizations found themselves in a universe very different from the one they remembered. But they were alive, and they were free. Jake's quantum form began to fade as the energy requirements became too great. But before he disappeared, he had one final message for Lisa and the human race. "We did it," he said simply. "We refused to vanish quietly into the dark. Now every species in the galaxy has the same chance we fought for, the right to exist, to grow, and to touch the stars." The USS Horizon emerged from ghost phase above Earth as the temporal quarantine field dissolved. The home planet of humanity appeared exactly as it had been before the erasers came. 15 billion people lived their lives unaware that they had been frozen in time for months. Lisa established communication with Earth Defense Command. The confused officers on the planet wanted to know where all the human colonies had gone, and why there were so many unknown alien ships in their space. It would take time to explain everything that had happened. The restored human colonies would need to rebuild their connections with each other and with Earth. The returning alien civilizations would need to find their place in a galaxy that had changed during their absence. But for the first time in months, Lisa felt truly hopeful about the future. Humanity had faced complete extinction, and not only survived but had chosen to save their enemies as well. That act of mercy had created something new. A galaxy where every species understood the value of existence and the importance of protecting each other. The erasers sent a message to the human fleet. Their ancient leader, now fully restored to normal existence, wanted to meet with the humans who had given his people a second chance at life. As Lisa prepared to dock with the eraser flagship, she thought about Jake and all the humans who had sacrificed everything to reach this moment. They had refused to let their species vanish from the stars, and in doing so they had lit a beacon of hope that would shine across the galaxy for generations to come. The human race was no longer alone in the universe. They were part of something larger, a community of species that had all faced erasure and survived. Together, they would explore the stars not as conquerors, but as guardians, making sure that no civilization would ever again face extinction alone.